The psychological impact of all the adjustments we're making to our lives in this difficult phase is tremendous. We are asked to keep away from people, places we like to visit, and all but those in essential occupations are homebound. It is not a physical adjustment that we are struggling with. It is a mindset shift adjustment that is so difficult. After all, we're being asked to shelter at home. It is a place that is familiar to us, and in the best of times, it is where we find the greatest comfort. But when there is fear, uncertainty, and adversity all around, the same place, which is so familiar and comforting and provided us with warmth, may now feel like the four walls of a prison. The physical surroundings of our homes have not changed. Everything is as before. In fact, the pantry may be better stocked than ever before. It is the mind that finds it hard to remain in one place, fueled by the constant influx of news, mostly of a negative nature. The mind begins to get covered in a dense layer of fear. What happens when there is fear? It triggers the flight response. We seek to immediately get away as far away as we can from that source of fear. When we are free to move about and we can go anywhere we wish to, this fear response takes flight in the form of different distractions. For instance, when we are by ourselves and there is this experience of fear that wells up from within, we seek the company of others. Mingling in a crowd distracts the senses, and the mind is not focused on that one thought that is of fear. But these days, that is not an option. Of course, we can speak to as many people as we wish to, or can via a video call, FaceTime, Zoom, or any one of those wonderful modern inventions that are making this phase of shelter in place, of social distancing, so much easier. But that's not the same. Whoever we speak to is reflecting the same sentiment of fear and uncertainty back to us. When one person is fearful, all others around that person who may not share the same fears can help diffuse the intensity of that emotion. But when everyone shares similar fears, where do we turn to for strength? Fear on the inside is pushing us outside. We seek help on the outside, but people on the outside are acting as mirrors, reflecting that fear back to us with added force. Something has to give. The mind is not strong enough unless we train it to handle every garment of fear we pile on it. And importantly, in the midst of a crisis of such severity and seriousness as the COVID-19, it may not be the best venue to start training the mind. It is like asking an athlete to start training for the Olympics while the games are in progress. What we need now is a quick fix for our fears. If you let those anxieties percolate down to the depths of the mind, there's every possibility that they will linger long after the world has won the battle with the coronavirus. Recovery from that mental toll may be prolonged and difficult. So how can we deal with our fears here and now, put them to bed, and set ourselves on the path towards positivity as the world limps towards a full recovery? Everything in the mind is energy. Fear is no exception. It is an immense cloud of energy that follows us wherever we go. Dark clouds in the sky form as a result of water evaporating from the ground. They appear out of nowhere. Once rain clouds form, they pour their water back onto the earth as rain. Every thought related to fear that we entertain, that we identify as being real, it evaporates into this growing cloud of fear, the growing energy of fear that surrounds us. One drop cannot form a rain cloud. Countless drops of water have to evaporate to even have a chance of forming those rain clouds. Likewise, a few thoughts of here and there of linked to our fears cannot create this foreboding doom and gloom, the big cloud of fear. When most of our thoughts are tinged with fear, then that energy begins to stagnate and begins to accumulate in the form of an immense cloud of fear. When this cloud of fear gets to a point where we can't manage it, the body begins to soak up the excess in the form of a stress response. Adrenaline begins to rush and flow throughout the body, and it is well known that stress can blunt the immune response. The fear that we entertain disarms the body's natural immune system that is so vital in these times. Fear is like a Trojan horse that the virus sends within us to disarm the immunity guards that are protecting the body, keeping it healthy. There are a few immediate measures we can take to reduce the production of this cloud of fear within us. If you belong to any social media, any of those groups, such as most of us do, please ask people not to post negative news. Not all that we read on the news is reliable information. Why not focus on the positives? Instead of locking our attention on the death toll, why not look at the numbers of people who have fully recovered? On the television, they list the number of infections and the number of deaths. It is natural for the mind to assume that most of the infections translate to death, as death is the greatest fear for most of us. Why highlight that fear on a constant basis? Of course, that information is needed and is important, but why not make it so that people would have to take an additional step to uncover that information for themselves? Instead, they could post the number of infections and the number recovered. This will give hope and courage to people. The fear we harbor will dissipate in time, but that energy will have to go somewhere. Instead of transferring that energy to other dormant fears, we can sow seeds of a few positive thoughts. And these thoughts will be able to use that energy. If a gardener is watering plants and he has an angry outburst while he's doing that, plants don't reject that water. The nourishing quality of the water does not change on account of the gardener's anger. Likewise, the energy stored in thoughts related to our fear is like water. Other thoughts can use that energy to produce an entirely different fruit. It is up to us to tend to the fragile seeds of positive thoughts and protect them, shelter them. We can do this by surrounding ourselves with positive people, tuning out from negativity on the airwaves, the internet, the television, and trusting that the scientific experts know what they're doing, and by not magnifying our fears by second-guessing their recommendations. Please help yourselves and others by not giving in to the impulse of spreading negative news via social media. All it takes is one tap of our finger to forward bad news, but we don't think of the impact it may have on those receiving that news. Please care for one another. Offer your love and support to others. Think of one good transformation you would like in the world. By taking the energy from the low-hanging, dark clouds of fear, work on creating that transformation within yourselves. The fruits of such positive transformation will last a lifetime. I will leave you with a poem about fear. Time knows of all our fears, sharpening them into spears, guarding the dance of distress. Its intensity brings us sweats. Fear breaks down our guard. In an instant, we are scarred, leaving a mark forever, crippling our every endeavor. Injecting a limp into our stride, we lose our footing and slide into the stagnant waters of fear. Why do we so volunteer? Holding the vase of fear as if it is precious and dear, cleaning it inside and out, and making it stand out. The mind, if we decorate with fear, it will degenerate. The landscape will turn barren. We willingly let it happen. Fear will meet its match when we decide to detach its fangs and sharp claws through taking a long pause between one thought and another. There is a comforting buffer. In it, fear drowns and disappears. From it, our lost self reappears.